Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We would also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. On today's episode, Grace Falleur joins us to discuss the Speller's method and about the participation of non-speaking students with autism in research and neuroscience. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Grace, thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories. I'd love to start our conversation off by learning, where does your story in the autistic community begin?
I was diagnosed with autism at age 3. I started occupational therapy and speech therapy and special education. I was a wild kid. My parents were always afraid about me getting loose. I couldn't talk. I only used scripts. I didn't really find community until after I learned to spell my communication and I was able to connect with other kids like me. It seems like since I learned how to spell my communication, the community and the opportunity to connect with others continues to grow and grow.
I read where you wrote that without the Speller's method, I would not be able to live a full and meaningful life. So from my understanding, this method of communication incorporates research-based disciplines and individualized support for every speller. What type of individualized support did you receive learning this method?
After learning the Speller's method, I was able to attend a private school that taught curriculum specifically for people who spell their communication. In this school, I was able to get one-on-one training and learn my school curriculum at the same time. Without this type of environment and this individualized support, I wouldn't have been ready to attend public high school in 2020. Learning the Speller's method allowed me to realize the dream of a general education diploma, which propelled me on to college where I am now. I know this college experience will result in a career that I love and will lead to a fulfilled life.
And you're currently a college student at Belmont University studying neuroscience. What's your hope to do once you graduate with your degree in neuroscience?
I am considering my grad school options. I have not decided what I want to do as a career. However, I know that I want to create new opportunities for non-speaking autistics in higher education and professional development career paths.
College can be a great opportunity to develop meaningful relationships and connections. So in thinking about that, I read where you wrote that you were so deeply touched by how many friends you made during the sessions with unlikely friends at Belmont this past spring. I'd love to hear about your experience with unlikely friends and what it means to be a friend for you.
Unlikely Friends was a social club designed for learning about other students of different races and worldviews. They were so kind and patient with me. The format was 4 different separate meetings that had different themes and intense conversations. I think what really stood out to me was how patient my schoolmates were and waiting for me to spell my answers. The whole purpose of Unlikely Friends was connection, and it was intentional connection to people that are different than you. There are a lot of people in the world that are different than me, and it touched me deeply to learn how to communicate with people that I would never get the opportunity to otherwise, and then, in turn, to teach people how to communicate with me who would never try otherwise.
I love that. I feel like this podcast is also a place for unlikely friends, because so many people that I would have never met without the Autism Stories podcast. I wanted to ask you about a wonderful essay that you wrote about the participation of non-speaking students with autism in research in neuroscience. Now, you started the article off by making the point that a key part of being an undergraduate student studying neuroscience is that participation in research is a key part of furthering those careers moving forward. However, also it's the connections to professors and faculty and the recommendations that are so critical in propelling students further in their career. What's been your experience up to this point in developing those relationships with professors and faculty?
In my experience, college professors and staff simply just need to have some more time and exposure to interacting with neurodivergent students. To be fair to them, there are not a large percentage of people like me that make it to college and participate in higher education. This definitely contributes to their lack of exposure and opportunity to interact with the autism community. In general, I'm blessed to have open-minded professors that treat me like every other student and allow me through my work ethic, my grades, and my commitment to show them that I am earning my place and opportunity to participate in research. This summer, I'm working one-on-one with my neuroscience professor on a research project about emotions with autistics, and it has been awesome. My experience in all has been mostly positive, although there are certainly some in this environment that have concerns about my being involved. I think it would be easy to be intimidated by that, and I would be lying to tell you I wasn't intimidated at one point or another in the last 2 years. I'm grateful for the open-minded professors that I'm privileged to work with in my university and the way that they promote equity in this competitive environment.
I love hearing about that research project because, dealing with emotions as autistics, it can be very, very challenging. So something else, in this essay, you really laid out some great ways that participation for non-speaking students with autism can be accessible. What do you think are some of the biggest barriers in achieving this accessibility?
I think one of the biggest barriers in non-speaking autistics being involved in research is the misunderstanding of the disability. There are many research theories about autism that involve perceptions of our disability that are incorrect. I think the assumption that we're unable to connect collegiately with other researchers is inaccurate, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The other major barrier to people like me participating in research as a researcher is that a lot of the research arenas, including labs, software, etc., are inaccessible. For example, in my current summer research, we've had to create accessibility options that the software doesn't currently provide, and this is 2024. Another major barrier is training for higher education professors and administration on how to provide accommodations that are appropriate for people with motor disabilities, which is what my autism is, primarily a neuromotor disability. In many ways, the understanding around other disabilities and motor problems, such as cerebral palsy or quadriplegia, seem very obvious to scientists, but not so in the case of someone like me. The inconsistency is what really prohibits higher education from being open-minded and allowing people like me to participate.
And lastly, Grace, how can our listeners learn about you beyond this interview?
Follow me on Grace May on Instagram.
And I'm already following you, Grace, and I definitely encourage our listeners to do the same, and will continue to follow you. Thanks so much for joining me here today, Grace, on Autism Stories.
You are so welcome.
Thank you.
For sharing my story. You're so welcome. Thank you for sharing my story.
Thanks so much to Grace for the conversation. To learn more about Grace, please check out the link in the podcast description for this episode. We always love hearing from you, and would especially love to hear from you relating to this episode on what ways you would like to see the world become more accessible for non-speaking people. Did you know Autism Personal Coach provides neurodiversity-affirming support by autistics for autistics? We empower autistic adults and teens to lead self-directed, purpose-driven lives through our customized life coaching and community groups. Our distinct approach prioritizes each client's unique goals and preferences, fostering a sense of agency and promoting self-advocacy. Coaches work collaboratively with clients to develop personalized strategies and tools that can help with executive functioning, emotional regulation, relationship building, stress management, and much more. We also support parents and partners of autistic people by providing insights and guidance to bridge communication gaps and nurture mutual understanding. With our accessible remote services, individuals from any location can receive the assistance and mentoring they need. Join us today to experience judgment-free coaching rooted in empathy, expertise, and respect for autistic identity. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.